What's up, everybody? This is Presto
CorporalNosaj.
and you are listening to episode 68 of the Nintendads podcast.
Do you know what that means?
It means that it's the one after 67.
And before
our 3-year anniversary.
anniversary.
Oh my goodness golly jeepers. Can you believe the time has just flown by like pea in the wind? Absolutely magical. We have been trying to do...
Welcome to the Nintendads After Hours.
So today is kind of a special episode in that we have been trying to do this episode for probably
3 months.
I was going to say 6 months.
Okay. At
We've
least
had these
3
notes
months.
written. Oh, well, no. I know exactly how long because when we were trying to do it, it has stuff about the summer in there.
Yeah.
So
it was probably
it
like
was
June
3
or
months.
July.
You're right. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. Today, as you can see above us, we are talking about what is the most important thing in games: graphics, story, or gameplay.
I'm actually gonna pull the stream up on a separate window so I can check.
And
the
we
chats.
don't agree.
No.
We super don't agree on this. Actually, I can create a poll while we do this first part. It's going to take me an hour to figure out how to do it. Because you're a poll dancer. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about graphics, gameplay, and story. I guess story. Whatever. I guess we have to include it, right? But first, let's talk about Corporal. What are you playing lately? What you be playing? Wedding planning simulator? Perhaps.
Yes, wedding planning simulator. For those of you who don't know, I'm getting married.
This week?
Yeah, this week. In a couple days.
Mark, thank you for liking the stream. Welcome in.
Lady Sage and I have been together for 5 years, and we've decided that it's time to... I don't know if tie the knot is really the right word. But
Yeah, people say that.
I guess, yeah. So we're tying the knot.
And you guys are... Yeah, I guess you're tying the knot.
Lady Sage and I are getting married, but Presto here...
Grabtacular, welcome in. They are getting married and I am marrying them. You are looking at the most enthusiastic minister of the Universal Life Church right here. I am marrying them. Grabtacular says congrats.
Thank you, Crap. The man is ordained.
I am ordained. I got ordained for you, Corporal. Oh my goodness. So what have you actually been playing? Have you even had time to play anything?
Actually, yes. I have been playing Elden Ring.
What? What?
Yes.
What? You're melting my brain right now. What are you talking about?
I have been playing Elden Ring.
I feel like I don't even know you anymore. So that means you're invited. How convenient. It was my only way to get an invitation. It was the only way.
PlayStation 5, nonetheless.
What? Now I know you're fibbing.
Just breaking all of the mental rules. Dixie, can you please stop, my girl? I love you. I know.
I just made the poll. Okay, there we go. Activate poll.
Do you really have to say activate poll? Is that
activate? Yeah, it's like Goku's power pole. You have to say the move when you do it. It's like a classic rule.
Okay.
Poll, activate. Oh, cool. Look, there it is. It works. And I'm winning the poll. Because I'm the only one that voted. Yeah. So wait. So you've been playing Elden Ring?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
My name is Jeff. Brought his PlayStation 5 over to the house while we were doing house projects and the hurricane happened, and then house projects again, and it stayed here. And I've been playing Elden Ring whenever we were like sitting down folding laundry or doing wedding planning stuff, or I was waiting for, the dishwasher to get finished or whatever. I've restarted the game 4 times.
Why did you restart the game 4 times?
So I can play the different characters.
No, sweet summer child. The characters are all basically the exact same. It just changes like what weapons and some of the stats that you start with, but it almost doesn't. It doesn't really matter that much. You need to talk to Nick Yeti. It's a Souls game. He'll tell you.
It is a Souls game, that's for sure.
How far have you gotten? Bernie!
Well, depending on which playthrough you're referring to, I've gone 7 hours in and 3 hours in, and in both cases, I got the exact same far on the map.
Okay. This could be a whole episode of me being so curious about you playing Elden Ring.
I have finding the biggest, baddest, and evilest things, and then trying to kill them with my samurai sword.
That generally doesn't go super well.
Nope.
I have been playing Street Fighter 6. We were graciously awarded a key for the closed beta, and I played that all weekend. And let me tell you, Street Fighter 6 is fun as heck. I am totally sold on it. It will be a day one purchase for me. I am probably going to stream it. It doesn't come out until 2023. So yes. I'm going to go through extreme withdrawals. I probably will not really get into like Street Fighter 5 or anything to like stave off the addiction of Hadouken.
Hadouken!
But Street Fighter 6 is sick. It's really, really good. Melissa, thank you for liking the stream. Yeah, Street Fighter 6 is really good. The character creator is completely unhinged. It's nuts. The monstrosities that people create. They might change that before the real release. I played a lot of Kimberly. I played a lot of Guile. Kimberly's a new Bushin Ryu character. Amazing. So good. I could go on and on. I could do a whole episode just about that.
You could.
If people are interested, I will do a closed beta impressions video. If you want a closed beta impressions video, say it in the chat or say it on our Discord, because I will do it. But if nobody wants it, I probably won't do it. What are you drinking, Corporal?
I am drinking water and Sprite and LaCroix and more water.
Why do you always have like 17 drinks? Every time I ask you, you're like, well, on today's menu.
Yeah. See, you need to have the palate cleanser and the healthy drink. So the water is there. LaCroix is water with a punch, and don't you tell me otherwise.
That's water with like a pinky flick.
And I have a soda problem. I'm working on it slowly. Today's soda is Sprite, which is almost a LaCroix, which is almost a water. So we're
So I see what's going on. You have Sprite, LaCroix, water. It's like a spectrum. Yes. Paulo, thank you for liking the stream. Okay, that makes sense. I usually have hydration, caffeination, intoxication. That's usually my spectrum. But today, I just have a giant thing of water.
Water.
I was running around all day. It's just water. It's not interesting. I have been drinking some fun fall coffee.
Oh yeah. So we have some cold brew, not Rook, Stoke.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We got some of that in the fridge downstairs. Actually, I should drink that because it's not going to be good when we get back.
Cold brew didn't go bad.
After 2 weeks sitting in the fridge, you think it's going to be fine?
No, is it the pre-mixed stuff? Like, does it have dairy product in it, like milk or something?
I'm sure it does. It's not black.
Oh, yeah, yeah, drink it.
Yeah. You're lying. The show notes here says that you're drinking Taco Bell meat juice.
And the show notes say you're drinking Sam Adams Summer Ale, so you can see that this episode, these notes have been around a minute. Anyway.
Give me 1 second, because I'm going to go stop a cat.
He's gonna go stop a cat. So I will introduce today's topic. By the way, if it is your first time joining us, we're the Nintendads. This is a podcast for adult gamers and Nintendo-loving parents. This is one of our episodes. We are recording and airing live, and this will be available on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, Anchor, all the fun podcasty places that you can listen to stuff. So, thanks for being here. So today we are discussing what is the most important part of a game, graphics, story, or gameplay. What do we have? Brian, before the surgery, the anesthesiologist asked if I'd like to be knocked out by gas or a boat paddle. It was an either or option. Very nice. I've not heard that one before. That's good. Welcome in, by the way. So, graphics, story, gameplay. Did you stop? Oh, he can't hear me yet. He has to put his headphones back on. Did you stop the animal?
I stopped the animal.
Good.
I do not trust that thing.
So, I just introduced the topic.
Topics!
Okay, so we're starting with the most popular games. What do the most popular games lean on? Because we're gonna talk about our own personal preferences, but from a pop culture, I guess, standpoint, what do the most popular games lean on?
So when I was writing these notes, and I say graphics, mechanics, story, and you think of the most popular games, what is it about this game that we can advertise in order to sell this game the best? And from a perspective of just sales, I believe that most popular games lean into their graphics and then their story in order to sell their game. And now, that's from a sales standpoint. Most popular games today, and I'm talking like, we're going to say Cyberpunk 77, right? Graphics is what sold that game. Nobody knew the story because it was a brand new concept, right?
Not necessarily, because Cyberpunk was based off of the original tabletop Cyberpunk game.
Okay,
but that's setting. That's kind of story,
sure.
But like, yeah.
So we're talking about graphics here, right? Assassin's Creed has a long lineage of stories that revolve around history and what role you play in that history. So story is really what's selling it there. So Cyberpunk 77 was relying mostly on the fan base from that tabletop and its overwhelming graphics to sell it.
But also gameplay. But ironically, they all, like, a lot of the things that they promised for gameplay did not
Never happened.
Either being in the game or working, so...
So, according to a survey by the Entertainment Software Association, the decisive factor in buying a game for 67% of players is high-quality graphics. Second, 65% belongs to the story and the plot.
Oh, interesting.
50% of players value interesting network or multiplayer component. So to your point.
Okay, so if it's multiplayer or not.
48% players buy sequels from well-known series, things like GTA and whatnot. And notice that mechanics are not even listed on this survey. So from my argument standpoint, most best-selling games today were going to rely on their graphics, their
story.
Yeah,
Graphics first. So graphics
story,
first, story, and then gameplay. Dead
and
last.
then yeah. And like they're talking about like network and multiplayer compatibility. Like I can see how that's a factor into the thing.
Yeah.
But I can, in some ways, make an argument that's really a part of the mechanics of the game. Some games don't lend themselves to be multiplayer because of what the mechanics are. So,
Sui Koden. PS1 had a lot of great stories, big bad graphics. Yeah, Counterpoint, Animal Crossing sold like hotcakes. Yeah.
yes.
So, okay. So, you're saying graphics, story, and gameplay, and you're backing it up with all these fancy numbers.
Fancy numbers. Now, this is just one staple that I'm starting this argument on. Now, everyone at home obviously is coming from different backgrounds, and if you've been following us and listening to our podcast long enough, take a shot. You know that we've had similar concepts of this conversation before when Nick Yeti was on the podcast with us. And we've talked about how Presto's frame rate, and he'll drool over the frames per second and the mechanics and the milliseconds of input data versus rollback netcode, blah, 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 numbers and things.
Listen.
We'll
get
watch my
there.
eyes glaze over as this comes. But everyone is coming from a different perspective on this topic. So that's why I wanted to bring this topic up. These stats alone, most popular games are sold decisively by 67%
by
looking
graphics.
at graphics.
Yeah, I believe that.
Then story, then input or networking, and then whether it's a sequel. Like, these stats alone, to me...
So, sequel... People might be buying a game for a sequel because they like how the first game played. But that's very that's a speculation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna look at this... Look at the grand wheel of time. First, we're gonna start in modern times, and then we're gonna go backwards in time. So, what is the most popular game of all time?
Tetris.
Mm-mm. You know it.
Solitaire.
The number one best-selling game of all time, the most popular game of all time, is
Isn't
Minecraft.
It Tetris?
It's Minecraft.
Minecraft has outsold
Now
Tetris.
let's take a quick look at this list. Minecraft. Do you think anybody plays Minecraft for the story?
Is there a story in Minecraft?
I don't think so, no.
I mean, there's one, but it's like you gotta like.
Do people play Minecraft for the graphics? Certainly not, sir. Certainly not. They play Minecraft for the mining and the crafting.
Blackbeard Slim says gameplay above all, by the way. Welcome
Hell
in, Blackbeard.
yes. Blackbeard. I always knew I liked you, my guy.
Blackbeard's
got
with a party
taste.
he's rating us with a
Yo,
party
Blackbeard,
of 7.
what's up? Thank you for
Welcome
coming through, my
in.
friend. Woo! We are the Nintendads. I'm Presto.
I'm CorporalNosaj.
And this is a live episode of our podcast. So thank you very much for the raid.
We do a podcast twice a month where we discuss anything and everything video games. But we also stream.
Tonight we are discussing graphics versus story versus gameplay. So, like I said, the number one game of all time is Minecraft, which is absolutely for gameplay. One of the most popular games, not the most popular game, but one of the most popular games, for better or for worse, Fortnite. Now, while Fortnite is now trying to do their story stuff and making people care about that, I don't think that's why people play Fortnite. Fortnite does have a certain visual style that is appealing, but I don't think, and we'll get into style versus graphics because I think those are two different things.
Yeah, I mean, Fortnite's got the, for lack of a better term, the Genshin Impact style.
Yeah, the universal.
Is also very close to a Breath of the Wild Zelda style. So, like.
Yeah. But I would argue that people play Fortnite because of the gameplay, because of the building or not building now, and the shooty pew pew. Call of Duty does sell some of its legacy on graphics for sure.
Okay.
But if you want to like have a seizure and shoot people and then get called slurs, I would say that's under gameplay, right?
Is that a world mechanic?
Okay, so that's modern stuff. So I would argue that all the modern stuff, even though it gets sold on the premise of graphics and it's the new thing, gameplay is what has the real stopping power of value.
I can make the argument, and I know where this conversation is going to go. Graphics, story, legacy, mechanics, in that order, is what sells a game.
But what makes the game great?
Once the game has been purchased, it's going to be story and mechanics that keep the players playing.
True. Now, I will make my last point, my last opening argument. See that controller right back there? And that controller right back there? The first games that came out had no story. They barely had graphics. It was all about the gameplay. It was only gameplay, right? That was it. So from the core essence of a video game, the core essence of every game, at the beating heart of any game, is gameplay. Because I'm just going to go ahead and drop this bomb early. Movies have graphics. Movies have story. But what makes games games is the gameplay.
It's a good argument. Opening arguments are closed.
Okay.
Take it.
All right.
So, we have broken this topic down so that we can digest things separately.
We've had a disgusting amount of time to think about this because we made these notes and we were going to do it, and then the episode got pushed back because a game came out or news came out, and we've been punting this episode month after month. So, like, every month, we'll, like, see something and be like, oh, yeah, that's a good little point. Let me write that down.
Yeah. Yep. So, the first topic that I have on here is graphics. And I've heard your bomb, your movies, your graphics, your story, but it's gameplay is what makes gameplay. And I hear that. I'm going to start my opening argument with the original Macintosh computers. Black and green screen. You cannot tell me that those games became popular because of their individual mechanics of press 1 to go through this door. You're going to be sucked in and compelled to continue playing those games. Very much could argue the grandfather of what started all computer-based games was because of the story that was so compelling that drew its players in.
Okay, so you want to take this, you want to go analog with this. Okay, I got you. So let's take one of the most tried and true, long-standing, near and dear to our heart games, Dungeons and Dragons, right? Okay. Dungeons and Dragons, there ain't no graphics. It's theater of the mind, baby. You're your own RTX 2080. You got to do it yourself. Graphics are out the window. So then what you have is story and gameplay. Oof, we're getting into D&D here. I know, we're only 20 minutes in and we're like going real far down the rabbit hole. So D&D, obviously, D&D campaigns are all about the story. You're the DM. You know how important the story is.
For those of you who are new to the channel, CorporalNosaj and Presto.
B-Side Magic! Oh my god, B-Side Magic is in the chat. Yo, what's up, man? Everybody check out B-Side Magic. He getting back into it. I see those Dead Cell playthroughs. I see them. I see them, B-Side.
So we on our YouTube channel, we've got our D&D session where I've hosted as DM or GM, however you want to say it. And Presto and 5 other friends of ours have came together and been tortured by us. So we've been dabbling in that DM life, that D&D life.
So yeah, so we love D&D. So obviously D&D, one of the oldest, best games out there. There's no graphics, so it's really between story and gameplay.
Does rolling dice count as a mechanic?
It does. So story obviously super important for D&D. However, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really have a persistent story. Each time you play Dungeons and Dragons, there is a story that unfolds. But Dungeons and Dragons as a medium has stood the test of time because of its mechanics. Because of the way that classes are set up, because of stats, because of the framework that has been put forth. And while the story is important, it is secondary to the longevity of the game.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, no.
So I have had a lot of time to think about this very topic. You, as the GM, create the story for you, the players, to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the reason why, and I'll argue this, that Dungeons and Dragons is so popular, because it allows the individual to place himself, through his imagination, into the story. To essentially be the first role play, right?
Yeah.
He's role-playing. In many ways, you could argue that imagination of the mind is the graphics. That it can be your own experience, completely separate from that of the person sitting next to you who's experiencing the same game, the same interaction, but having their own mental, graphical experience completely different. So it's in the eye of the beholder. The graphics there is in the eye of the beholder. The story, while the GM may be providing the framework of, you as the player making the decisions are what really drive that story in directions. So yet again, the graphics, the imagination that you are developing in your head, and the story that you and your own individual decisions are what's driving that game forward. Yes, the mechanics and the frameworks are the rails of that train, but you as the player create that motion and that train itself.
But what's the difference between telling a story and somebody having you ask questions about the story and actually playing Dungeons and Dragons? It's gameplay. It's mechanics.
Sure.
I could tell you a story, and I could tell you a amazing story. You could ask questions. Oh, well, what color was the car you stole? Oh, it was bright orange. It was this like juicy tangerine orange. And that enhances everything. But all of those things that you just said apply to me telling a story. But what makes the difference of D&D being a specific medium that people latch onto is the mechanics and the gameplay that allow it to be so interactive in a dynamic way.
So you're making the argument that it's the mechanics of the D&D dice rolling and the stats that are involved.
The stats
that separate it from it just being a story.
Yes, gameplay separates movies from games. It separates storytelling from Dungeons and Dragons. I would argue that that's the same sort of context.
Okay. So because of that, you think that mechanics are more important than graphics.
Yes.
Talking about graphics, while perpetuate the game, you think that the mechanics, and you're trying to go old school with the.
I'm trying to go hardcore, 100%. I'm saying, if it's not clear, gameplay is the most important part of games, and I will argue it any on any battlefield in any time period. That gameplay is where it's at.
Over on Twitch, Ken, though, I can't speak to D&D, but the struggle that you specifically experience in the execution of the story can be different from the struggle of another instance of a story leading to a personalized impression of the same story. He's making the argument that story, in this case, is more important. Okay. It's more impactful because of the individual instances between each person is personalized.
ATG Rain on Facebook says gameplay ... I'll die on that hill.
So in our notes here, graphics are always what you see first. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Is the quote that came
is
with
such
that.
a you quote. I could just picture like, oh, I have a missed call from Corporal, answering it and then listening to the voicemail, and it's just you saying something like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
So, way back when graphics weren't as great as they are today, games like Final Fantasy that fixtured pixelated content were very basic combat controls was one of the major games out there and left a mark on players for eternity. So leaving behind that even though the graphics may not have been as impactful, as amazing as they are, they still left a wow factor for that time period.
I will say, every generation of game consoles that comes out always puts graphics first. And I will admit there is something to that. Because that sells. That's why we're on the endless train of generation consoles, right? Is because every 5 or 6 years they come out with something and they're just like, we've made the graphics better, and that ushers in an entire new generation of consoles and games. So I do admit that graphics are important. I still don't think they're more important.
I also would like to argue that the intensity of graphics and the strive for more realism from graphics forces developers and designers to create mechanics to feel more immersive in that element.
That's true. Yeah, there are some games that base their gameplay around the graphics.
And we could take this, I would say, a step further when we're talking about graphics and pull out my Oculus. While some of the
that's a good point.
some of the mechanics of those games may not be great, but being immersed in that graphical environment is what draws such an appeal.
So that's a really good point, is because, okay, so VR, right?
Yep.
VR maybe is the future of gaming, maybe it's not. But for argument's sake, let's say it is. Let's say in 10 years, we're all looking at each other and being like, remember when we played games on tiny little screens? That was so stupid. Headset on. Like full Ready Player One.
You don't even have to go headset full Ready Player One. There are developers today who are creating immersive glasses that you can just put on, just like the glasses you currently wear, and it creates a projected screen in front of your eyes.
Yeah. Oh, Octopath Traveler had a great story, but graphics-wise wasn't up to par, so the story was doing a great part. Mystical Fourth Option DLC. So this is an interesting thought experiment here. So VR, right? Say VR is the future of where we're going. Is what makes VR special graphics or gameplay? Because on one hand, like you said, you have the graphics. There's nothing like VR graphics. But is the ability to maneuver in a completely different way gameplay? Because if you had amazing graphics, like I could take my headset and I can put it on and I can play Cyberpunk or Skyrim or whatever and just mirror my desktop to VR, and I'm looking at it and it's a screen as big as a mountain and I'm looking at it and I'm playing it. But nobody plays VR for that. They play it for the ability to have depth.
For the immersion.
The immersion. Yeah. And I would argue that the immersion is gameplay. But I don't know if I can confidently...
because
it's a very gray area.
It's a gray area between a mechanical immersion versus a graphical immersion. Yeah, I hear that. Story could be what's keeping you moving forward in that game, maybe. But... So, Blackbeard Slim, you can always play the nostalgia angle with graphics as well, taking us back to childhood and modern mechanics. And Kenlo, when it comes to a game, I gotta move this over so I can read it, sorry. Boom. When it comes to a game, come on, with the feel that the story and gameplay are the two highest values. They are the baseline level of graphics that must be met. But story and gameplay vary in importance based on the genre of the game. For a fighting game, for example, gameplay has a higher degree of importance, in my opinion, rather than the story. However, for RPGs, as a higher importance of the story than the gameplay.
So you have hit on. Thank you for the very insightful comments. But this actually, you're hitting on a point. You're hitting on a point that I thought about going into this. In that, I think graphics, story, and gameplay, what is most important, is heavily, heavily dependent on the genre that you're playing. I think some people are hardcore. Some people play Street Fighter for the story. There's a guy on Twitter that I follow who is, his whole Twitter account is dedicated to the lore of Street Fighter.
Can I tell you that I am such a DC fan, and by DC I'm referring to the comics, Batman, Superman, Flash, whatnot. I have gone online and have watched supercuts of the Injustice video games so I can follow the DC story that's available. I could care less about the combat because I don't like those types of games, but I want to know the story.
So here's another interesting. This is a freebie. I'm giving this one to you. A big. Oh, I don't even want to do this because I'm shooting myself in the foot. I'm shooting myself in the foot. People buy certain franchises of games for the character. People buy Sonic games for Sonic, Mario games for Mario, DC for DC, Street Fighter because it's a Street Fighter game. You could argue, Zelda, you could argue that, I mean, you can't argue, it's a fact that characters are part of the story. Characters don't have anything to do with graphics, don't have anything to do with gameplay. Characters are story. And in a lot of cases, characters sell games. Case in point, Disney Dreamlight, whatever the game is that
Dreamlight
just came
Magic,
out. Yeah. Look, that was a little too quick. That was suspicious. You're like, yeah, I've been playing Elden Ring while remodeling my house. While the real answer slips out, Disney Dreamlight.
No, I actually haven't played Disney Dreamlight Magic, and
you live in Florida. You live Disney Dreamlight Magic. It's all around you.
For the record, Lady Sage and I have straight out barred that game from entering our home because Harry Potter Legacy is coming out, and we do not want to get sucked into something else because we want to play Hogwarts.
And so you just get a casual surface level game like Elden Ring? I don't buy it.
Yet again.
This is a volatile episode.
Elden Ring is what is played at like 11:30 at night while we're downing a bottle of wine because we are so beaten tired from doing everything else.
How did you only get like this far across the map? I have to like put on like a sweatband and like be fully focused to make any progress in Elden Ring. It's not a sit down casually like Animal Crossing, let me see what my villagers are doing and then get one-shotted by every boss.
You miss out on the opportunity of co-parenting a child because now there are 3 adults who are in the room that we can pass the controller around as we are all taking care of kids and doing house stuff.
Okay.
When my name is Jeff comes over to help out.
That is not how co-op games are supposed to be played.
That's not how co-op games are supposed to be. But when there's 3 parents in the house taking care of 2 kids, it makes it easy to pass the controller around. Hey, Borelli, I can't take care of this boss. Here's the controller. Go ahead and take care of that. I'll start cooking dinner.
Borelli this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I genuinely don't remember what point either of us were trying to make. We slipped so far off that slope. Oh, genre.
Genre, yeah.
What genre you're playing greatly depends on what you're valuing. If you're playing an RPG, story first, probably graphics, then gameplay. If you're playing a fighting game, it's probably going to be gameplay, then graphics, then story if there is any. So I do think, and I think that is pretty accurately reflected, because the games that I play, because I value gameplay over everything else, I don't care in most cases what the story is, the graphics, whatever, it's the gameplay. Because, like, all the, like, oh, it's the third-person adventure, like, every PlayStation game. I just don't care. Like, Tomb Raider, God of War, Uncharted, they're all just a mishmash of over-the-shoulder bland oatmeal to me. I don't care. Give me something interesting to do with the gameplay.
I'm going to grab my Gears of War shirt for this.
Oh, that's like cold oatmeal to me.
So, every once in a while, those types of games, Gears of War was one of them, that introduced new mechanics, like the fast reload button. Where
yes, cool.
You had to shoot. Yes, it created a dynamic part that made you more a part of the interaction. It wasn't just hitting X to reload. You had to reload with speed and accuracy and finesse. The dexterity of your button pushing is what really mattered in order to get off those shots just that much faster. And you got rewarded with, speed and an extra shot or an extra round or whatever for being able to pull off that trigger pull. So mechanics, in that sense, I will admit, help to create something unique for the game, to push that game forward. I'd make the argument, Tom Clancy's The Division. You had the interactive map where you as the player had to hit a button and all of a sudden you look down and the map built up around you. It's a very interesting and cool way of showing a map. You're not just pulling out a piece of paper, it's two-dimensional and it's flat. Yeah. It's now three-dimensional and you can maneuver within your map space to better understand where you are dynamically in the world.
You'd have to stream The Division one of these days, because you love it so much, and I've never played it, and I've never seen you play it.
Really?
Yeah, I've no context.
The Division, I feel like is a love story to me. It's so much of the things that I love, but I digress. So, my point here, like the trigger pull or the map in The Division or Gears of War, respectively, I would say that those mechanics create interesting concepts and things that will make the game unique. But I'm not buying the game because of a fast reaction trigger pull for Gears of War. I am buying Gears of War because it's a fast-paced action shooter with a really good story.
So, and then they milked that good story and good gameplay for 5 games, and at the 5th game, it's just dry. It's dust. There's nothing left.
By the 3rd game, that thing was starting to show wear and tear. It was over at that point.
Yeah, I think it's very much genre dependent. I think I want to make one more point for graphics, and we touched on it earlier, is there is a difference. I would argue there's a difference between graphics and visual style. Because if you look at, like, Cuphead, its selling point was its graphics, but I wouldn't say...
You can't compare its graphics to something like Breath of the Wild or like Call of Duty.
Yeah, because it's not graphics, it's a visual style. And I feel like when you talk about visual style, it's mostly a very unique / bizarre outshoot. Like, you have Borderlands, very known for its visual style. Not necessarily why people play the game, but it's a defining feature. You have, Cuphead, what's the game that I'm thinking of? Hollow Knight. Anything that's retro, I would argue, is more a visual style thing than graphics.
But you can make the argument that things like Fortnite, Genshin Impact, like that artistic color palette, cartoonish thing is a style.
Yeah, and I think, but you do have to file visual style under graphics. I think it's a sub point of graphics.
Sure. Graphics wins. Next.
Story. Arguably the least... No.
So, when I was writing these notes for story, and you can tell that these notes are much smaller than graphics is, but story is very much a individualized personal thing. You do not care about story. You could literally pick up a game and not even want to look at the story because all you care about is whether or not I can play online with my friends and it's got good returning commands.
This is me. This is me admiring the story in any game. Hold on. Let me get my controller for full effect here. Skip dialogue. Skip dialogue. Shut up. Give me the quest. Give me the quest. Skip the cutscene. Let me get it.
Blackbeard Slim mentioning NetherRealm does a really good storytelling for a fighting game. I would agree. While the mechanics of that game is mostly sold based on the ability to be a fighter, it does have a really compelling and interesting story. Just like Injustice. Some people are continuing to follow the Injustice series because there is an ongoing saga.
Yeah, and that's all. The Injustice is also made by NetherRealm Studio, who is arguably the best at tying in story to their games. Like, there is a story in Street Fighter, but all the story modes in Street Fighter are pretty garbage. And I like Street Fighter better than Mortal Kombat by a lot. But Mortal Kombat has the story. Like, I had Mortal Kombat 11, and before I returned it, I watched as much of the story as I could.
And, I mean, Graptacular makes a good comment here on Facebook. Nintendo has hedged most of their bets on gameplay. Most of their games, I mean, you're talking about graphics for Mario, a reoccurring theme for their style, but they have changed up their graphic style for Mario so many different times. Look at Zelda series. They've done the cartoon, they've done the dark, they've done the Genshin style. Like,
yeah.
They've changed their graphics, but their story is what that franchised story is what keeps bringing people back.
That is interesting, Graptacular, that comment, because in saying Nintendo has hedged their bets on gameplay, maybe that's why I'm more drawn to Nintendo games. Because, like, I like Mario, and I like Zelda, and I like all the first-party, like, Nintendo games, but that's not why we decided to make a podcast about Nintendo called the Nintendads. I'm not like a die-hard Mario fan or a die-hard, like, there's no single series in the Nintendo universe that I'm like wearing a t-shirt about every time. I just really like the way a lot of Nintendo games play. I do love Splatoon. I do love my Splatoon. And I do absolutely now am completely head over heels with Monster Hunter. That's not really a Nintendo-specific thing, but Josh says, Sausage Child. But yes, we digressed yet again. I will yield, because I went to school for writing. I have a degree in writing. And I will say that zooming way out, video games are a form of entertainment, right?
Yep.
Video games are a form of entertainment. And entertainment at its core is storytelling.
Yep.
From cavemen, the earliest ancestors of people sitting around a fire telling stories for entertainment. That is
what
the
about those
seed.
cave paintings? Talk about them graphics, bro.
Oh, the graphics.
No mechanics in that story.
The fire is the mechanic. That shit's keeping you alive. That's the mechanics. Yeah, but at its core, all entertainment is some form of storytelling, or at least has its roots in some form of storytelling. So I don't know exactly how that translates. I mean, almost all games have a story in one shape or
Tetris
another.
doesn't really have a story.
Yeah, you're rebuilding the fallen Soviet Union one block at a time. It came from Russia. It's the story right there. I mean, that's always the story that I assign to it in my head.
Wow.
Mother Russia is crumbling. We must rebuild her by placing blocks.
I have done other things, dropping missiles in the shape of different things.
Oh my god.
Boom, boom, boom.
Pong. Well, yeah, Pong has a story. Ping pong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Weird two-dimensional ping pong.
So, the argument here for story is almost a moot point, because a game, other than what video game has been released that doesn't have some concept of a story? Like, you can make the argument about the Street Fighter and the fighting games,
but like actually has a game that actually has no story.
Yeah.
Solitaire.
Because there still is a, like, this character doesn't like this character.
Solitaire.
Okay, but that's
Pinball.
It's a card game, not a video game.
Pinball. Virtual pinball.
So pinball, in many ways,
tic-tac-toe.
The pinball itself does have graphics, the art style that's in the case, and in many cases, pinball has a story.
That's true. Not always.
Not always, but most of them have some sort of dynamic on the map as to what leads to what's going on.
Pong is actually an eternal battle between the twins, Po and Ng. Is there... So wait, chat. This is why I'm glad we do episodes live. Can you think of a game that does not have a story? In any way, shape, or form, any trace of a story?
A video game.
I'm struggling. I can't think of one. I'm sure that there is one.
So
there has to be.
My point being is that the story, in every case, movie, book, comic,
E.T.
Every single one, in some way, has to have some type of story. The story may suck, or the story may be so absent from the game, like those fighting games, that it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there is some kind of story there. And an argument also could be made for graphics that while there is not a story that's being said to you in your face, the graphical landscape of each one of the worlds which you fight in and what the characters represent in itself can portray that story.
Yes, and you just seamlessly transitioned into my next point, being a gameplay lover. My favorite stories, the ones that I find most compelling, are story elements that are told through gameplay. So, perfect example, which I think is like a 10 out of 10 game that everybody should play, that seamlessly combines graphic, story, and gameplay, which is Hades.
Yes.
Hades...
Actually, when I was making these notes, like, that is something that has stood out in a game that I can say, like, points very positively in each one of these metrics. The mechanic of that roguelite, the graphic art style that they chose, and the story that they are providing to you. All of those things are seamlessly connected to each other.
Yeah.
In a very beautiful way.
P-Cross has no story, maybe it's puzzles. Sudoku. Yeah. But Hades, right, the story is the gameplay. You're trying to escape hell, you make it as far as you can, you die, you restart. It's a roguelite. That's not a new concept. However, most roguelites or roguelikes, you do the thing, it starts over, and then the story starts over. But in Hades, you dying and restarting, the actual gameplay mechanics of the game informs the story, and vice versa. Also, when you get bonuses and boons and powers from the gods, the powers tell you about that god's personality. Aphrodite, god of love. What does she do? Her stuff doesn't damage people, it disables them. it causes them to get charmed and they don't attack you. Hades, or Dionysus, the god of drinks, doesn't do direct damage. It does slow, intoxicating damage over time, and then you get a hangover effect. Like, so good. I'm gonna go play it. I'm gonna go play it
now. Yes,
it's really good. But that marries, to me, gameplay and the graphics. The art style is absolutely gorgeous. But to me, I find it so compelling because the gameplay tells the story. Like, there's very little, like, there's dialogue, but, like, it's so good.
So, I've played, and we're somewhat bleeding into gameplay / mechanics here, but I have played games that have phenomenal graphics and have a really strong, compelling story. And because the mechanics are so...
Graphics.
Because the mechanics are so simple, it makes that game so much more enjoyable. You don't need to have compelling mechanics to have a really good game. They can have very basic mechanics, but a really strong story, and those simple mechanics like drive the story forward. Something, and an immediate example of this I'm going to say is Firewatch. Such a absolutely beautiful game with a very specific art style for its graphic setup, but the mechanics are so simple. Forward, pick up, talk, drop. Like, that's it. Those are your buttons. And the way that game allows you to explore and interact with your environment, which in itself is a mechanic, allows the game to maneuver so beautifully that I think really lends itself to a good marriage of the two. Not necessarily a high level of intelligence needed for those mechanics, but because of how beautiful and compelling the story is, it drives it.
Yeah, Graptacular said like Heavy Rain too, very similar, where it's mostly graphics and story. Gameplay sort of takes a back seat. And the Telltale game series.
Yep.
Is all graphics and story.
Very little mechanics.
Myst. I don't know. I can't believe you didn't throw that one in there.
Why did I miss Myst? Oh
I can't believe you didn't put Myst in there. Go ahead, make your Misty points. Getting misty-eyed over there.
Misty. So, Myst, while a very, very, very deep, like, hidden, convoluted story. Oh my god. But the mechanics of that game, because of its puzzle elements, make that game probably the highest mechanical skill. It's not necessarily mechanical in nature, but it's the game's mechanics on how you have to interact and solve its puzzles make it a very challenging game.
Myst, wow. The notebook you need IRL graphics. The notebook you need in IRL is graphics or mechanics? That's a good question.
You have no idea. The composition books, the black and white marble books.
Yeah.
I had a black and white marble book almost filled with, like, how to solve Myst stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so, and it is when I think back on games, like my favorite games, Super Smash Brothers, Monster Hunter now, but Final Fantasy VII, I remember Final Fantasy VII for the story, because Lord knows it was not for the graphics. Even though at the time the graphics were pretty jaw-dropping, but I've replayed Final Fantasy VII probably more times than I've ever played a game start to finish than any other game. And if I do play the remake, it will be for the new parts of the story and the new graphics, because the mechanics are honestly what's keeping me away from it, because I've heard some not great things and I don't want to be disappointed. So yeah, story I think affects the longevity of how games are remembered, because there's always going to be new gameplay mechanics, there's always going to be better graphics, but the story is what like gives the game its legacy, I'll say.
So, in this argument, I would like us to be able to weight these topics. That line right there, a good story can give a game its legacy and whether or not how important it is remembered. It is well known that Assassin's Creed 2 has one of the best stories out of the entire Assassin's Creed series. It's also well known that Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag introduced so many new mechanics that Black Flag is remembered for being one of the best games. So while Assassin's Creed 2 has the best story, Assassin's Creed 4 has the best mechanics in game. So you just talked about the story itself and creating its legacy and how it is remembered. That legacy, if done right, is the Hail Mary of any game developer that will place them on the map throughout the gaming history. It will
withstand time, yeah.
That in itself can say that story is bigger than all of this.
So wait,
if done right.
I just had a complete mind-blowing revelation in this.
Okay.
Most of my thoughts about the topics that we discuss happen when we're writing the notes.
Yes.
But every once in a while, in our discussions, I connect dots. And that just happened in maybe the biggest way from any episode that we've ever done. Okay, so we're talking about graphics, story, gameplay. So you said graphics is what sells a game, right? When they're showing a game off, they show graphics first, right?
Per a survey that was done by professionals.
Well,
I mean... opinion, I'm saying...
yeah, but in general, the first thing that you see, your first impression of a game, when they show it, it's the graphics. It's the first thing you see. It's what builds hype up around new games. It's what pushes consoles out. Graphics is always the hook in most cases, statistically and sort of by logic. When you have the game, gameplay is what you're doing. You're sitting down, you're playing the game. That is the element of these three that you are most interacting with. So in the present moment when you're playing a game, you're doing the gameplay. What you remember most about most games is story, and a story is what can give games its legacy. So what we have is a past, present, future situation. What happens, what you look at and what you see before you play a game, that's most important is graphics. While you're playing a game, the most important thing is gameplay. And after you've played the game, the most important thing is story.
Ooh. Yeah, because how that game has made you feel will totally drive your appreciation and love for that game. It's an emotion itself that the story has provided. The story has provided an emotion. Emotion is a response to something that you've had. Immediately makes that emotion past tense, or the situation you've experienced past tense. So,
and like when you play a new game or when you're seeing a game for the first time, you're always like, oh, these graphics are so good. But the more you play it, the more graphics don't matter because you get used to it. When you're playing a game, you obviously don't know how the gameplay is going to work before you play a game. It's most prevalent while you're playing it in the moment. And then afterwards, you can even go so long. If you pick up an old game, you forget how to play. You forget the mechanics. But you'll always remember the story.
Remember the story.
So it really is like a future, present, past kind of thing. That's crazy.
I'm going to say something.
That's a crazy thing.
Buttons and pots.
Oh, yeah. Banjo-Kazooie, yeah.
I loved that game so much. I forgot some of the story, so I will regularly replay the story. the graphics are the graphics, whatever. But the mechanics, I've forgotten the mechanics. I had to call you to ask you where the buttons and where the pots were in order to figure out how to solve certain puzzles in the game. But the story is the reason why I always replay it, because it's so fun.
Yeah. GoldenEye. I have a feeling, and I said this on a previous episode, everybody's hyped about GoldenEye. First of all, also, Jaya, thank you for liking the stream, sharing the stream. Jaya says story. So she's Team Corporal. GoldenEye, everybody's hyped.
You can't. So first off, I'm mechanics and story, or I'm graphics and story. I'm mostly story, but I'm graphics and story. You are mechanics through and through.
Gameplay. Blind me, deafen me, give me good gameplay. That doesn't make any sense.
Go ahead, sorry.
Everybody's hyped up about this GoldenEye re-release, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody remembers it fondly. They're remembering the story. They're remembering playing. But I have a feeling when it comes out, people are going to be like, yo, these graphics are ass. And this gameplay is super outdated. So it's like when you go back to older games, sometimes the only thing that stands the test of time is story.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why I'm giving you more freebies, but that's true.
I mean, I have made the argument that the original Halo games is some of the best. Halo is one game that I have played probably more than I have played Banjo-Kazooie, which in itself is insane for me to say, because you know how much I've played Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I gotta say, story creates that emotional draw that is the reason why people come back to a game, re-experience the game, have a love and affinity for a game. It's also the same reason why games like Banjo or GoldenEye resonate with players decades after they have been removed from the shelf.
Yes. Ooh, Grabtacular, you have impeccable taste. Grabtacular says GoldenEye. People are going to be so disappointed. Perfect Dark is better in every way. Time Splitters is even better than that. Yo, Time Splitters was some crazy shit. I remember playing Time Splitters. If we were playing GoldenEye, the volume level was here. If we were playing Perfect Dark, the volume level was here. If we were playing Time Splitters, we could only play for like 15 minutes at a time because my parents would come back down and be like, are you kids murdering each other down here? What is going on? Time Splitters was crazy. I would love to play Time Splitters again.
Graptacular and you had the exact same childhood.
Yeah, for real. So gameplay. I need to get my gameplay stuff off my chest. Let's see what notes I had written. I doubt there's anything in gameplay that I haven't said already. Content and gameplay will always have a major weight on the average score. Graphics sell and capture a lot of audiences, but the numbers do not lie. I'm not sure why there was like no follow-up point for that. I said that. These are your notes. That's why I don't understand. It's achieved by the use of graphics. Gameplay. Oh, this is just you shit-talking gameplay in the notes. I see. This was a trap. I see.
I wrote the notes with my perspective in mind.
Hey, Alexa, play Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. I almost just woke up my son. So, to me, I mean, there's not a lot about gameplay and mechanics to say that hasn't already been said. I will say, for me personally, yes, I remember Final Fantasy, yes, but if I look at my most played games across any platform... Graptacular said, I had to stop my Alexa too, thanks. Oh no! What have I done? And this is on a podcast, so people are like, as people listen to this, they are going to trigger... Oh man, in a month we're going to see Sabotage by the Beastie Boys climbing the charts inadvertently. Yep. Nobody knows why. That's funny. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, if I look at all the games that I have played and put the most hours into, Super Smash Brothers, like, as a series, has been my most played game by far, despite my extreme salt and resentment for the game as it is right now and the online state of it. 64. I mean, I've played hundreds of hours in every single Smash title. I've gotten every Smash title on release. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I've gotten every Smash title on release. I've put the most amount of time into that series. When you look at other games like GoldenEye, like StarCraft, Jet Force Gemini, going back, SSX Tricky. Yeah, right? StarCraft.
Wow.
Any RTS.
I mean, you say StarCraft and I'm like Command and Conquer series.
Command and Conquer, Tiberian Sun. Any art that's a whole category. That's a whole genre of games that is defined by the gameplay and mechanics. The graphics, there was some story, especially Command and Conquer. The story was it was there. But the gameplay is what makes that whole genre work. And I think as a player, I gravitate towards genres that hang their hat on gameplay. Like I said, I don't play a lot of the Tomb Raiders, the story-driven games. I like fighters. I like action RPGs. Some shooters, but yeah, mostly mechanics and gameplay are what keeps me hooked. And that's I will say that although I remember games for their stories, and I'll look fondly on Final Fantasy or this and that, I will go back and play games. Like, not necessarily remembering them fondly and, oh, this was an epic game, but I will plug in old systems to play games because of gameplay.
Okay. There's some nostalgia factor that's brought in there, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, I would argue that Pokemon, one of the most successful franchises of all time, the stories are always horrifically predictable. But then you could throw in that the characters are what makes that franchise, which is technically part of the story. But collecting them is a gameplay feature.
It's a mechanic,
right?
Yeah.
Graphics, they always kind of just take the safe, they try really hard to make their games look pretty, but in general, gameplay or graphics, there's never been a Pokemon game that's like pushing the boundary of graphics, right? It always just kind of like is medium for whatever are, in context of the times. Mario 1 NES still holds up. Gameplay. Sonic the Hedgehog. Gameplay. Graphics too, but mostly gameplay.
Story?
For Sonic the Hedgehog. You're going to argue people play Sonic the Hedgehog for the story.
No. They don't. I don't think that they pick up Sonic the Hedgehog for the story.
Oh, for the character, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but at the same time, I do agree that the mechanics of that game, forget about the graphics, the mechanics of that game, it now becomes the casual game. I can sit back and relax and play the game. I don't have to think too much about the story or how to play the game. The mechanics of the game are so easy to play that it now just becomes a casual game.
Yeah, and that's part of the appeal.
That goes back to the Firewatch thing, that casual mechanic makes the game more successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say I have come to appreciate in this last hour and 15 minutes, I've come to appreciate in our discussion the critical role, not a pun to the D&D podcast, but the critical role that graphics, story, that graphics and story play into the game. Because before we started this conversation, I wasn't thinking about characters as part of the story.
Yeah.
Which I would say graphics I still kind of don't care that much about, but I have a new appreciation for the gravity of the story element.
Gravity is what may sell the game, and the importance of those graphics... Gravity may sell the game. Graphics may sell the game, and the importance of those graphics selling the game is what allows it and its parent company to be successful enough to create more like it or sequels to it in order for it to be successful. So, because we all just know that graphics is what sells the game first, it's that first impression. The mechanics in the story help with the word of mouth for it to continue to be successful after its release and its metascore and all that other stuff. And then how good that story is creates that legacy of the game and whether or not it's worth to continue. An argument can still be made that graphics may be importance of the graphics have an importance on that scale, and while that importance is high for that game's longevity, of these three topics, is it the most important?
No. I will say, bravo for you just wrapping that up and summarizing it very eloquently. But yeah, I would say each of these has an important role to play, not only like while you're playing the game, because while you're playing the game, they all matter, right? They all come together. Yep. They all come together to create an experience. But it's interesting in our breakdown how graphics matter more up front, gameplay matters more in the moment, and story matters more towards the tail end and after the fact and what you remember. And I really wasn't expecting that to like be a thing.
I mean, that in itself, I've heard that The Last of Us was a good game to play. I heard The Last of Us is a fun game to play. Last of Us is a pretty game to play. I went out and got The Last of Us because I heard how amazing that story was. The graphics at the time were on par with all the other things that were out, so it wasn't super like wow and amazing. And the mechanics of the game were fun, enjoyable, and I can continue to play it. But that story is what draw that hook so deep into me that I went out and got it.
Yeah. See, I would never buy a game based on that. I want to know, okay, new Street Fighter's coming out. Does it have rollback netcode? Yes. Is it fast? Is it fluid? Yes. I don't care if it looks like a dirty sock on the floor. I don't care if the story doesn't make any sense or there is no story. If it plays good, I want it.
So
that's what I like to sink my teeth into. Grabtacular says, for him, gameplay 40%, story and graphics are both 30%.
Okay.
Which mathematically checks out. Yeah, I think that's the episode. I think we all learned a little bit here today.
We did learn a little bit here today. That Corporal knows how to form an argument.
It was good. This was an episode where I expected it to be like taking shots at each other and back and forth until the bitter end. But I think we both kind of came to an appreciation of the larger role that everything comes into balance with.
I'll be honest with you. Had we done this episode when I first proposed the concept, I don't think it would have panned out the way it has tonight.
No, because we've been thinking about this topic for 3 months. This is like the deep thought episode.
Most certainly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that's the episode.
I would love if you're listening to this on the podcast after the fact, or even if you're here with us tonight, go ahead and find us on Discord or find us on our Facebook channel.
And find us on Twitch. We're trying to grow our Twitch, and that shit is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard out here. If you're watching on Facebook, head over to our Twitch and give us a follow. Because we're trying to grow both. Facebook is obviously our larger platform. But shout outs to everybody. Kenlo, TCG, appreciate you popping in for the first time. Yeah, we're trying to grow. We're trying to grow our Twitch, and it's hard. We want to be on all platforms.
Find us on some of our channels. Like I said, Facebook, Twitch. We have an Instagram and a Twitter that we barely use, but you can find us there too.
Yeah, we have a TikTok. We're getting stuff ready.
Find us on TikTok. Find us on Discord. Let me know, because this particular episode was a love story of mine that I was been wanting to talk about for a while. I think it's a very important topic. And I also think that it's a topic that has so many facets that impact the gaming community. And sometimes mechanics or the graphics can develop a very toxic trait that can divide a gaming community. And there are some games that have came out more recently than there should be that were not in development the right way, were not released at the par level that they should have been, and either their story, their mechanics, or their graphics failed because of the love that they did not put into it. And those things are huge. They're big things.
We missed a whole element. The real story of games in 2022 are graphics, story, gameplay, budget.
Budget.
Competence.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from anyone who's listening to this podcast, this live stream, or to this playback afterwards. We re-upload all of our podcast video versions on YouTube as well. Leave us a comment somewhere and let us know where you stand in the graphics, story, gameplay debate.
Yes. Also, little housekeeping note. The next 2 weeks, our schedule is going to be a little bit jacked up because Corporal is getting married. If you missed the beginning of the show, Corporal's getting married, and I am officiating his ceremony, and then he is skipping town on his honeymoon, and y'all are going to be stuck with just me for a bit. And
I promise when I come back, I'll come back rejuvenated, energized, and ready to grind.
Yeah.
But the next 2 weeks, you got to deal with his ugly mug.
I'm gonna get a cardboard cut. I'm gonna get a cardboard cut out of your head, and I'm gonna put it right there.
Yes.
Look, the bones are already there.
Yes.
I'm gonna actually do that. I need to hook up my printer
and just print out a big zoomed in version of my face.
Yeah, I think carrying the Nintendads by myself is really bound to hurt my back. And I actually posted on Facebook that my spine was hurting. Did you see this? It was about a week back. Get it? Week back?
About a week back.
Ooh, Grabtacular says post the registry.
Oh, I don't have a registry.
The registry is just send stars, and they will go towards things that Corporal needs.
I wish I did have a registry.
Such as Mike the Mike.
Mike the Mike.
Mike the Mike was on his registry.
The thing is that Lady Sage and I have been together for 5 years. Each of us have our own child from a previous relationship, and we are just joining our two families together now after these 5 years.
Sounds like some House of Thrones stuff.
Yes.
We will join our two houses.
And because of that, we pretty much already have everything we need. So we weren't really looking to get, for lack of a better term, stuff. We want memories. And in this day and age, money allows us to take time off of work so we can make those memories.
Pretty much.
So that's where our focus is.
See, even in real life, Corporal's like, I don't care what things look like. I don't care how things work. It's about the story. We want our story. We're building our story.
Together.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I could use a new mic. My Pro Controller is looking a little crusty. I would definitely put that on my registry, yeah. You think these lights are part of the story? Hell no. These are a mechanic.
These are a mechanic.
All right, everybody. This was a fun episode. Thank you for joining in the chat. We will see you. Wait, what's today? Today's Monday. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be streaming. All right, everybody. Take care.